Happy Wednesday. It's Weight Loss Wednesday, and welcome to my very first show of Unzipped with Sheri. To give you a quick little backstory about me, I had the gastric sleeve back in 2014. I was over 350 pounds. The surgery has completely changed my life in ways that we will get to in future shows as you're watching along. Since then, I decided I wanted to use my story to hopefully inspire others and motivate others to live their best life possible. So, back in 2019, I published my first book, Unzipped, all about my weight loss journey, the struggle with obesity, having the surgery, what the experience was like. And it was such a huge experience, a huge, amazing opportunity to be able to talk to all of these different people from all over the place, all over the country, all over the world about their bariatric surgery experiences and what their life was like with obesity and how the surgery changed their life. And I kind of wanted to start a movement on kind of removing the stigmas of obesity while also, shedding light to how this is merely a tool. It's not like cheating or anything like that. A lot of us, this was an only option to stay alive and live a long and healthy life. And so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to start this new show, Unzipped with Sheri, is I want to talk to you guys and I want to hear your stories and spread all of this amazing, motivating, and inspiring journeys on how you can overcome any obstacle that you're facing and you can live your best life possible. And the reason it's called Unzipped, well, because one, it's named after my book, shameless plug, go check it out. But two, there's two different things for me that we unzip. One of them was when I was at my heaviest, I used to envision going to a party and you're always the biggest person in the room. The attention's on you, whether or not you want it. And I used to have this vision of unzipping my costume and revealing like my true self. And I used to have this reoccurring vision all the time. And so that was one of the reasons why I wanted to name the book Unzipped and name the show Unzipped. But the second reason is, why do we unzip in normal time? We unzip before we're about to do something intimate, whether it's in the bedroom or in the bathroom or anything. You're unzipping to be your most vulnerable and you're basically exposing yourself in different ways. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to name the book and the show Unzipped is we all do it every single day in different ways. And I want to unzip with you guys and tell your stories. And we want to be raw and honest as possible and talk about the realities. This is not an easy fix. If you have weight loss surgery, it's not an easy solution. But if you put in the work and you do everything that you can have the most amazing results possible and you can live your best life. And that's what we're going to do. And so we have a very exciting show today. We're going to be interviewing with Chelsey, and I think it's time. Let's get unzipped. Hello, Chelsey.
Hello.
How are you this fine Wednesday?
Good. How are you?
I am doing fabulous. We were just talking a few minutes before, and you were worried because you are having thunder and lightning. And I'm literally looking outside, and it's clear skies, and it's like 80 degrees. And I went on my walk, and I was sweating this morning. What is the weather over there?
It is kind of sprinkling, not necessarily thundering anymore, but sprinkling. We're supposed to have scattered thunderstorms all day today, so.
Like, that's just crazy. And just, we'll make it really quick because we have so much that we want to get into. But we were just talking. I live in Southern California where, like, if it is 60 degrees, it is too cold for me. And I am complaining the entire time. And I made a joke to Chelsey and I said, how cold does it get there? Like, does it get like close to 0 degrees? And what did you say?
It gets to -30 to -40 in the
Like,
winter.
like I literally was like, no, no, I can't even fathom. How do you function if it's less than zero, if it's -30 degrees outside?
Sometimes people's cars can't start or schools are closed, but otherwise we just live a normal life. We just go about living.
I feel like if it's less than 30 degrees, I will become the car and I will not start. I will not be able to function like at all.
And there are lots of people like that here.
Oh my God. But first and foremost, thank you so much. You are my very first guest on the show, and I'm really excited. And you and I got to chat a couple weeks ago, and I was just blown away by your story. And I'm very excited with things, how they're progressing even in recent times. And I can't wait to delve into all of that. But I've had the pleasure of already meeting you and talking to you. But people who are watching right now, they are wondering, who's Chelsey? What's she about? What's her story? So, why don't you start and tell us a little bit on the backstory of Chelsey before the surgery?
Well, I have always been a big girl. I can always remember from little, like toddler, being a big girl. And the first time I ever really got into, being called fat or kind of into the fat stigma was I remember when I was 10 years old and I had gone to my church youth camp and came home and I ran up to my mom and we were talking. And I was like, God made me just the way he's supposed to. I'm supposed to be exactly who I am. And then my mom ended up saying, well, God doesn't make fat people.
Oh,
And so that just totally nosedived into, you know, my self-confidence, my self-esteem, and my thinking of I was a fat person.
yeah.
And I never got out of that through high school. Um, I didn't really reach my highest weight till after I was about 19. My very first boyfriend had broken up with me and I lost my support system and I ended up gaining 30 pounds in about a month. And at that time is when I was about my highest weight of 308. And then I had been diagnosed with diabetes at the age of 18 and it slowly got worse. My numbers got worse. We tried insulin and it just did not go the way it was supposed to.
Yeah, and especially when you're like 19, you're still discovering yourself. You're still finding yourself. You're still developing. What was life like for you when you were overweight? Whether it was like how you viewed yourself or like how you felt like in social circles and around other people.
I'm a very I'm a very much an extrovert when I'm with people. I very much like talking with people, being with people. When I was a bigger person, it was hard because I felt like attention was on me, whether it was good or bad. So I didn't want to be in the spotlight. I didn't like compliments. I didn't like being pointed out. I didn't like being made to talk in front of people in college. Like I did not like any of that. And it was such a weird experience because in high school, I felt kind of the complete opposite. I was okay with who I was. I was okay
Right.
with, standing up and giving presentations. But as I got older into adulthood, it changed. It completely changed.
And I'm curious, like, because I know that for me, when I was in school, I was the one who usually sat in the back of the class. I didn't want attention drawn on me. If I was in public with like a bunch of friends, like if I was in my immediate social group, I was usually like, the extrovert and I would make jokes and I wanted to be like the funny one. But around other people and especially if I didn't know, like I was the complete opposite. And it was always funny when I would tell people like I'm actually really shy and they're like, no you're not. And I'm like, well no, I know you, like you and I are fine, but like being around other people. And when I went back to college, I was in my 30s and I was at my heaviest weight and I sat at the very very back of the class, the very last row possible. And I remember I couldn't fit in the seats. It was so uncomfortable. And that, even though people can't see you when they're all in front of you, but I felt like everybody in the room was watching me.
Hmm.
It's just So, how old were you when you started toying with the idea of maybe surgery is an option for you?
I started kind of getting into it in about 2018, so I was about 24, 25.
Okay. And was there anything specific or anything that had happened that you're like, I can't do this anymore. I need to make a change?
There was some health issues. I ended up having some pain from what the doctors had said was a hiatal hernia, so it led to me looking into the surgery. I was denied originally with my insurance, so I waited because I was in the process of getting a new job anyways.
Mm.
So then the following, so 2019 I got the new job, and then 2020 is when I was like, my blood sugars aren't coming down. I was 300 to 400 daily in sugars, and you're supposed to be between 70 and 100.
It's a big
Like,
difference.
it's huge. Like, I should have been in a diabetic coma more times than not. And my body just was so used to it, it didn't give me any warning signs that I was high. And I was on an insulin pump. You're supposed to change about every 2 to 3 days. I was changing it every day and a half to 2 days. So I was getting 300 units of insulin, and my numbers still weren't going down. And it just was, it's time. I need to do something because otherwise, my diabetes is going to wreck my future.
100%. And to have to go through that at a young age too is just unfathomable. So, you had the surgery in 2020?
Yes,
Like, in what month?
April.
So, you literally had the surgery literally weeks after the entire world shut down and everybody is freaking out about COVID and quarantine. Oh my God, what was that like?
Well, funny story. So I worked at a clinic, and I was told I was high risk for COVID, so I went on a leave of absence from work. And originally, I had been planning to have the surgery in August. I was going to be like my birthday gift to myself. And so I'm sitting there thinking, I was like, well, crap, I don't know how long I'm going to be off of work. So maybe they can get me in a little bit sooner. So I called, and the scheduler goes, well, it's Tuesday when I call. Well, we can get you in on Monday for surgery. I was like, what? She's like, yeah, if you get your, pre-op physical done tomorrow, your COVID test done on Friday, we'll get you in for surgery Monday.
Wait. So, first of all, you had your surgery at the height of an unknown what is going to happen in the world pandemic. And then, blind side number two is you have literally less than a week to prepare.
Yep.
So, I feel like you're just like, go big or go home. Like,
You could say that.
oh, so, okay. Now, granted, and people who know my story, I think I had just under a month to prepare. Mine was kind of quick too, but then like to do it in less than a week, I don't. How do you mentally prepare yourself? Because we're in April. You initially were going to be having it in August, which side note, we are August babies together.
Cool.
Um, so you at first you had a couple months to prepare. You went from a couple months to mentally prepare yourself to like 6 days.
It was hard, I'll admit it. It was easy at first, and then as the time got closer, I was like, "Oh my gosh, am I really doing this?" And then it was like 2 days before, I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's almost here. This is life-changing. Holy crap, this is life-changing." And then the day before, I was, honestly, I was perfectly calm the day before.
Wait, really?
Yeah, like, I was just like, "Okay, this is it. This is gonna be the beginning of my new life. I can't wait to do it." Everything was in place. It was calming the day before, but up to that, I was a nervous wreck.
Oh my god. So had you ever had any kind of surgery before? Had you ever been under anesthesia or had anything major done?
I had been under anesthesia a couple times for some colonoscopies and endoscopies, and then I had my gallbladder out in 2016.
Okay. So you weren't necessarily like afraid of the anesthesia cuz I had never had surgery before. I had never had anesthesia. I had never been put I kind of broke a funny bone when I was younger. We can talk about that another day. But other than that, I had never been admitted into a hospital. So my fear was like through the roof for like the first couple weeks leading up to it. But and I've heard now compared to gallbladder surgery, Is the weight loss surgery about the same, better, or worse?
I would say it's a little bit better. I wasn't in as much pain. Now, granted, I stayed in the hospital for 4 days, and that's the part I was nervous about because I had never stayed in the hospital overnight. And I don't remember much of the first day besides being in pain and trying to
Yeah,
wake up from the anesthesia. But I mean, it actually was a lot better recovery time. I didn't hurt as bad after um,
the
the.
gallbladder.
I hurt more after the gallbladder than the bariatric surgery.
Really?
Yeah, like it was yeah.
You're like, yeah. Okay, so I know that people who hear about gastric sleeve or gastric bypass, those are usually like the two most common surgeries that people hear of when they think of bariatric. But you had something called the duodenal switch, and hopefully I pronounced that correctly and didn't embarrass myself. Um, and I've heard the term used before in support groups where people have had that procedure, but I had never known anybody who had specifically done it. So let me tell me, what is the duodenal switch and how is it different from the sleeve or the bypass?
So you are saying it correct because I originally was saying a duodenal switch and it's duodenal switch. So you said it right.
Okay.
It is actually a cross between the bypass and the sleeve. So the stomach is shaped like the sleeve, but it bypasses the large intestine. It bypasses one of the intestines like the bypass. So it's
Interesting.
so it's kind of a cross between the surgeries. I was told when I was going through the choices, I actually was going to go for bypass. That was actually my first choice. And then my surgeon said, "Well, this is a fairly new procedure," and said it, and I kind of asked him what he kind of thought about it. He said it's a really good result with people with diabetes, and there's really good results with
Oh,
bringing them to um, non-diabetic status.
interesting. So it's more commonly used with people who have diabetes or maybe like an exasperated form of it. This is like the
Exactly.
safest option for them. So now it's been 2 years since. How are our sugar numbers? How are our diabetes numbers?
I have not been on any medications or insulin since the day of surgery.
What?
Yeah, I was keeping track of my sugars for about 3 months after surgery and they were perfect, so I am deemed not diabetic, which is phenomenal seeing how my sugars were. Like I made me cry the day I went home because I was like, okay, well, how much insulin do I do now? And he's like, you don't. I was like, wait a minute, I have an insulin pump. What do you mean I don't do insulin? He said, you don't do insulin.
Oh my god, like you literally gave me goosebumps. Like I can't even imagine how you felt that day.
It was amazing. I hadn't lived without insulin in years because of how bad my sugars were. It was amazing.
And I feel like, granted, when we have weight loss surgery, the goal is because we need to lose weight, we need to be at a healthier range and stuff. But there are certain things that we talk about in the community called NSVs, and which is a non-scale victory. So it's something that's not related to the number on the scale or the pant size or anything. It's just moments or things that happen that I feel like for me are far more rewarding than a number on a scale. And I feel like that would probably be one of the biggest NSVs that I could have, to not have to be on all of this medication. To these your numbers were so high, like you probably could have died from it, if not soon, like at a younger age. And to be told like everything has literally been reversed seemingly overnight. Oh my god, I can't even like fathom that.
It was unreal. It was very unreal. Just could not believe it.
I absolutely love that. Now, because I don't know enough about the duodenal switch or duodenal switch, as it's been previously known as, are there like are there any side effects that are common with it, or did you have any side effects?
So the one side effect I have is diarrhea. I do have about 2 to 3 diarrhea episodes a day. Now, granted, it's small price to pay
Yeah,
for, everything I've gained, but it and I had had some issues with it beforehand, so it wasn't really a big shock. Now, obviously, it doesn't happen to everybody. Everybody's different.
right.
Then the only other two are I can still throw up. So that's kind of like I know with I think the bypass, most of the time you can't throw up or it's really painful to throw up.
I have heard that.
I know with some surgeries it can be, and then I don't dump. With the duodenal switch,
Okay.
it's kind of a bad but a good thing, but you could eat more normal foods, which if you're overeating or go back to the way you were before surgery, it could
Right.
be a bad thing.
Well, and I guess that makes sense because if the duodenal switch is like partially with the sleeve, I know one of the reasons that people with the sleeve don't really have dumping syndrome is because the bottom of the stomach that absorbs the nutrients and vitamins and stuff are not taken away where like the bypass. So I can see why you would not have dumping as much, but you kind of hinted a little bit because you have this you almost have the full sleeve, you're not as restricted as somebody with the bypass, and it seems like your tolerance to foods is a lot higher than people who've had the bypass or the sleeve, correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So one Teresa has written in saying very happy to see you both. So thank you so much for tuning in. And then Emily gave us a comment that because she had the gastric bypass, I think a little over 10 years ago or almost 10 years ago now. And she said that she threw up once a week on average. I'm not okay. I no. I think I can probably count on my hand the amount of times I've thrown up since surgery, and we're going almost 8 years. And I think it's because I hate the notion of it so much. Being younger, I was not much of a drinker because I was one of those people that would go from sober to belligerent in a drink and a half. And like,
Mhm.
not belligerent as in ridiculous, but like belligerent as in I throw up and pass out and the night is over. So I hate the act of it so much that I was so terrified that I was literally probably way overly cautious in the beginning about eating. And then, like anybody who can attest, if you've ever thrown up with half a stomach or a quarter of a stomach or a rerouted stomach, it's probably one of the most awkward and painful and unpleasant experiences that you're going to want to do everything you can to avoid that in the future. But Emily, I'm sorry, like that Smurfing sucks. 100%.
Yes, that
Um,
does.
yeah. Hallie gave us a comment saying hello, Sheri, and hello, Chelsey. You guys look great. Thank you so much, Hallie.
Thank
So
you.
100%. Look, you're so popular today for our first show. I absolutely love it. Um, so I'm glad. So you were starting to say that you didn't have too many side effects, but you did have some issues with supplements, correct?
I did. So I had my surgery April 6th of 2020, and in August, I actually ended up having some dizzy spells, and I ended up passing out one night.
Really?
And it wasn't until September when I was actually going to our Menards store and I felt like passing out, and I actually had the store call an ambulance because I knew I couldn't drive across town to the hospital. And they did the doctor there was great. I worked at the hospital, so they knew me, so it was kind of funny.
Nice.
But she was like, "Yeah, so your potassium and magnesium are like extremely scary low, so you're going to be admitted overnight for an infusion of both." I was like,
Oh,
"Okay, I guess." So I had two IVs going on, one in each arm, as I'm sitting there in the ICU because they didn't have any regular rooms for me.
oh my God. Wait, and this is still in the middle of a pandemic. We keep forgetting that.
Yeah.
So, okay, going back really quick, just because I'm really fascinated because I know that when the pandemic first happened, a lot of surgeries got canceled because they considered weight loss surgery as an elective surgery. So I know that across the world, people were getting devastated. They've been in the middle of their pre-op diets or their liver shrinking diets. They're mentally prepared. They're about to start their life. boom, the entire world shuts down. Everybody's in a panic. Nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow or if we're ever going to have toilet paper again. Like, it was like this crazy time. And you literally were one of the lucky ones who still got to go through with your surgery. And I'm just curious, like, what was the time, because you said you're in the hospital for 4 days. What was the recovery like during that time when nobody knew what tomorrow was going to be like?
It actually was really nice because I still was on my leave of absence. So I was on my leave of absence till the end of May. So I had a month, almost 2 months of recovery time before. When I was going to have it in August, I was only going to take 2 weeks of PTO.
Oh,
So I
okay.
actually was able to recover a lot better. I was able to move a lot sooner. I also, with the DS, with the Switch, I actually had to be on a month of liquids, like just a month pure liquids
Wait, afterwards?
after surgery.
Okay.
So that part was very frustrating, but I was able to get through a lot easier because I wasn't at work, with coworkers eating lunch. I was at my house. So it was a lot easier with that. But the funny thing is I literally I was in the hospital Monday for surgery. I got out Friday morning. Friday is when my hospital decided they were not doing elective surgeries anymore.
Shut up.
I had to say that when you mentioned that because my brother's girlfriend picked me up and I had to tell her, I was like, well, I got in right under the clock because they just stopped doing elective surgeries today.
Wow. Talk about like it truly being meant to be. Like, can you imagine if you had that surgery scheduled for Friday and
Yep.
they had to cancel and you spent all of this? Oh my God. I can't even. Oh my God. Like, you literally gave me goosebumps again. That's twice in one show. Like, I don't even stop it right now. Um, so question for you.
Yes.
Because I mean, obviously for me personally, if I was in your position, I think having the sugar numbers going down would probably be my favorite NSV because that's a huge thing to overcome. And I told this story to people in the past. I was once told that I had diabetes and I was going to have to be on this all of this medication. And I remember asking the doctor at the time, like, if I lost all the weight, if I like kind of revamped everything and took it seriously, like, can I overcome this? And she's like, no. Even if you lose all the weight, you're going to have diabetes for the rest of your life. And maybe it was because of that moment that I became a stubborn little bee. And I was like, I am now on a mission. My sole mission was to prove you wrong, which I think, is probably not the smartest thing, but it worked for me because I was able to reverse everything on my own 6 months later. And when you see that blood work and you see those numbers and you're like, I did this, like, this is amazing, it's the best feeling. But other than that, do you have any other like favorite moments or like a favorite NSV moment in the last 2 years?
I have two. So the first one is I have a little miracle niece that got born in 2016. And she was one of my reasons for doing the surgery was to be able to run around with her in the backyard and make memories. So the very first time when she got to run around on her playground and wanted me to come and watch and run around with her and I did not get winded was one of my favorite non-skill victories. And then the other one was this past summer, me and my boyfriend, he actually took me kayaking. And I had never gone before and I love it, but I always like I'm too fat to sit in the kayak. I'm not, what am I, I'm too heavy. Oh my gosh, it was so much fun. It was an amazing experience and I loved it. And I can't wait
I
to
just
go
love,
do
like,
it.
and I love that you can literally see the joy in your face, like through your giant smile, like just reliving that moment. Like, I remember like my very first NSV was sitting at work and I happened to look down for something I was on paper and my legs happened to be crossed. And at first I didn't think anything of it. And I'm like working, I'm like, wait, like it was so natural, like, and that had never happened before. I called my husband, I'm like, my legs are crossed, this is the most glorious thing ever. Like, I was freaking out. And when something like that, like, I've never been on a kayak yet, but now I want to try it. But there's something something happens when you have a moment like that you didn't think was possible before, or either you've never done it before or you haven't done it since in like 20 years or since you were a kid. I don't know. And I don't know about for you, but for me, it kind of motivates me. Like, what's next? What's another thing I can knock off the list, or what's something else that I can accomplish? Was that the same for you, or you just reveled in the moment?
No, definitely was. It was kind of going from there to, you know, he has a motorcycle, so it was going on a motorcycle ride and not being too
Whoa.
big to sit on the back of it. And then it was also like going hiking to like a little canyon with the hills. And so it's just kind of like cool because he loves to travel, he loves to do photography, so it's kind of like, well, where can we travel together? And so it's kind of fun to be like, well, now I'm not weighed down with my weight.
Yeah. And now, how long have you two been together now?
It'll be a year on the 28th.
Okay, so you met him post surgery. Okay. And then I'm just curious, and you don't have to share if you don't want to, but where did you guys meet?
Actually met on Facebook dating app,
Oh, okay. And
actually.
so what was it? So curious. So you were single at the time that you had the surgery.
Mhm.
And we've talked before, like when you're at a certain weight and you're unhappy and you're not healthy, like you're very insecure, you're very shy, you're more reserved. Like you said, like you kind of become like an introvert in settings. At what point did something kind of shift in your mindset where you started to kind of feel maybe more confident or more better, or at what point were things kind of shifting for you?
It was after I had, so December through February of 2020, 2021 was really
Mhm.
horrible health wise for me. I had quite a few issues.
Yeah.
Um, and so I kind of came out of that because I had taken a leave of absence for my mental health. And I was like, I do so much for me. I was in school at the time, I was working, I was taking care of my best friend. I was like, I think I'm ready to date again. I started feeling better about myself. It's like, I'm ready. I'm really ready to be out in the dating world again. I really didn't want to open my heart to anyone else and get smashed, but I was ready.
Okay, so you kind of put yourself out there. Now, what was like the first date like? Was it where, because I know like you and I have talked in the past that we're kind of open books.
Hmm.
Whereas, you can literally ask us anything about the journey, but there's a lot of people that are afraid to admit to somebody that they've had the surgery, or they're afraid of being judged. Or so at what point, like, do you bring it up like fairly early on when you guys were dating that you had weight loss surgery, or did you kind of keep it hidden for a bit?
I bring it up right away. That's just me, well, if you don't like it or you can't handle it, then we're not meant to be. That's kind of how I feel, and why waste
Love it.
time. That's just how I am. And I told him right away about it. He said no problem. He, asked me how I was doing, on my journey, and we talked about it. And so the first date wasn't actually a first date. We actually met up just to talk and just to see each other face to face. Because he lives 2 hours away and his parents live an hour and a half away from me. So he kind of just drove down here, again, taking some pictures, some photography of the Tamarack Wildlife Refuge we have here. And we met up and talked, and he's like, I'd really like to take you on a date. And I was like, okay. And so talked some more. So then the first date was actually him taking me fishing with his parents.
Wait, your first date was meeting the parents?
Yes.
Who does that? Oh
We
my
do
god.
apparently.
Chelsey does that apparently.
Yep.
So what was it like? Like, how awkward is that? You're barely getting to know this guy, and now like you're with the parent, and you're trying. It's already hard enough to impress the guy you're potentially gonna date by making sure that they like you and that there's a connection. And when you have to meet the parents later on, that is nerve wracking. So of course Chelsea's like, "Go big or go home. Let's just throw it all into the same day."
It was actually pretty fun. They were really nice. It kind of gave us our alone time. But I honestly, it was kind of funny because he has a boat, but it doesn't have a motor, so he was rowing it. It was kind of like I felt like one of those old like gondola
Oh
like
my god, I love that.
scenes from a movie where he's rowing and I'm just sitting there like this. And we were just talking. It was hilarious, but it
Oh
was
my,
good.
that reminds me of that scene in The Little Mermaid, and I just want the little
Yeah.
crab to start singing to you guys.
We had froggies croaking, if that helps.
I freaking love that. Oh my gosh. So the reason I wanted to, ask about your first date is because I think something a little birdie or a little froggy told me um that something happened recently. What happened recently?
Yes, Friday night he proposed to me and I said yes, so we are officially engaged.
I'm so excited for you guys.
Thank you.
Really quick, Emily was asking where you are from.
I am from Minnesota.
That's right, where it gets to be -30 at some point in the year. So I will not be going to Minnesota when those events happen. I was told I can go in June, and it's the safest bet. Side note. Um, what was that moment like for you? Like what kind of thoughts go through your head when he proposed?
Well, funnily enough, we've talked a lot about getting married in the future sometime, and we had just talked about that. We had talked about our future, and he just was like he was really nervous to make a commitment. He had dated before a really long term relationship, but never felt right to propose. And it was just funny because I was laying on his bed and he was listening to music. He's like, "Get up for a minute. I have a surprise for you." And I said, "Okay." So I sat up and he's like, "Well, stand up. I have a surprise for you. You'll like it." So I stood up and that's when he got down on one knee and proposed. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, how awesome." And I was just thinking, "Okay, we're on the same page. I love it." I said, "Yes." Just kind of all excited. Of course, it was funny because he kind of seemed like he was more excited because he called his parents right away and told them we were engaged. And then he changed our Facebook status before I even could tell my dad that we were engaged.
I am literally so excited for you, um and I had already asked you ahead of time. I'm just going to assume that you're going to come back on a future show because we're not done with Chelsey. Like, Chelsey is getting married. How many NSVs are going to happen along the way? And how I want, like, look at your face. Like, you're just smiling so much. Like, I'm so excited for you. And I can't wait to hear about the day that you're dress shopping and how that makes you feel. And oh my god, I'm so excited. I already told you I am living vicariously through you right now. So we are definitely going to be coming back to it. Um what is something that you'd be looking forward to most with the whole wedding planning now that you've had the surgery and you've lost all this weight?
I think I think one of my biggest ones is going to be the dress shopping. I think I always was like, "Oh, I'm gonna be one of those people who buys like a $500 dress from David Bridals," but in reality, I was like, "I wish I could be the ones that would try on like 18 different dresses before finding the one, or trying on certain styles." But no, that's not gonna look good on my fat body. Like, it's just, I'm excited for it.
I am so excited for you. And we were talking earlier. There was something that you said before we came on the show that really resonated with me personally because I have heard it 100 million times before in the past. And that is what was usually the most common phrase that somebody used to give you when you were overweight or when you were like struggling with obesity.
I had a few friends that I was really close to, and I was, telling them about my struggles with dating. And one of the things that they told me that they had been told to them was I would be a knockout if I lost weight.
Yeah. And that stung me because you and I had talked. I had been told on numerous occasions, Sheri, you have such a pretty face, but if you lost weight, blah 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 blah.
Mhm.
um so number one, moving forward, we don't give a flying smurf what anybody thinks we should or shouldn't be, but curious to know, like, what are your thoughts now, since you would have those comments in the past? Because obviously it affects you. It really hurts your feelings. And it kind of like, brings you down. But what's your whole mentality like these days overall?
Pretty good. I still, well, body dysmorphia is a thing. I still feel like I'm the fat person, but I know I'm not.
No, you're
I
not.
still I still go through that quite a bit, but it's mentally it's really good. I still have a hard time accepting compliments.
Mhm.
It's just so weird. Wow, you look so good. I haven't seen you since you got skinny. It's like, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And
But
I used to get so frustrated where like every time you saw some, especially in the beginning when you're losing weight really quickly and you go to an event, they're like, "Oh my God, you look so great." And it's almost like they're being so overly complimenting that you're like, wow, what the hell were you saying before? Because
yep.
you were over the top, like making sure that I know how good I look now. And I guess it would just get so frustrating. And like I totally lost my train of thought because now I'm thinking about to say that. Um, but when it comes to the body dysmorphia, what is the biggest struggle for you?
For me, it's more of I've always been the bigger person, the biggest, a big person. It's so hard to vision myself as a smaller person. It's more of like I can see in pictures, I could see myself growing thinner, but at the same time, it's like I feel like a whale. I feel huge.
Mhm.
Why, yeah, it just,
No, and you know what? I think that's really common too because I struggle with that a lot too. Where and something happens, especially when you start losing a lot of weight and you start becoming more active. And then it's almost like you forget to a point how limited you were before. And I feel like you put yourself on this different, pedestal or like this different you put more pressure on yourself now because now you're more capable to do things. And I would be one of those things people that I would look at a picture and you look small, but like you said, you don't know how to take compliments. Like you're not used to it. Usually people stayed silent for so many years and now they're being overboard. And then so for me, my first reaction when somebody compliments me is like, "Oh, you look great." Yeah, but look at these arms. Or, "Oh my God, but I have so much loose skin." And like it's like you're self-deprecating on yourself because you almost feel bad that people are complimenting you because you're not used to it.
mm-hmm,
And so one thing over the years that's really helped me, and I still struggle with it, but I just go, thank you.
mm-hmm,
And that's I'm trying to get out of the mindset of putting yourself down to kind of lessen the compliment. And I know for me, and I don't know if it'll help with you too, is when I used to look in the mirror and I would feel kind of self-conscious or I still felt like a fat person, I would try something different. And whether it was like I would try a new shirt and maybe cinch it in a certain way, or if I was still insecure about how my body looked, I would pick a feature that I did like about myself, whether it was your smile or your eyes or whatever, and I would kind of highlight that. So I feel like if you feel confident about a specific aspect of yourself, then over time, the rest of it kind of falls in place to kind of catch up to it. It kind of slowly changes the mindset. But I'm telling you, that shit's going to go out the window when you start dress shopping. And I want pictures.
absolutely.
I'm just saying. Um, so one of the things I wanted to ask you too is what I'm trying to think of how to word it, but basically, there's so many people out there who are considering the surgery, who are on the fence about having surgery, who are like, should I or shouldn't I? What do I do? What is some advice that you would give to somebody who might be watching this right now and thinking, I might want to have the surgery. I might want to look into it. What advice would you give them?
I'd say definitely do your research and do whatever you feel is best for you. Now, I went with the switch surgery. My best friend was going to do surgery. She ended up backing out due to some personal reasons, but she was going to go with the bypass. My brother actually did surgery last year and he chose the sleeve. You got to go with what's best for you. But make sure to do your research and definitely go into it not with Sounds weird, but not with a stable mind, because we're not all stable when we go into surgery, because that's huge. But know that it's okay to have an adjustment period. It's
Mhm.
okay to feel sad. It's okay to mourn the loss of your previous life. I
Absolutely.
had that issue a couple days before my surgery, was just like, "Oh my gosh, I'm never going to be able to eat so much like this again." Or at that time I was thinking, "Well, I'll never be able to eat this again. I'll never be able to, do this. How comfortable will I feel going to parties or, Christmas dinner, or how will I get through that?" And it's okay to mourn that part of it, because so much of our culture is surrounded in food.
Yeah.
So it is okay to mourn that. Just don't let it consume you.
Literally and figuratively. Like I absolutely love that. And I feel like, the biggest thing that people usually say in the beginning is they mourn, like they're like, I'll never be able to have pizza again, I'll never be able to have cake again. And the reality is, regardless of what surgery you've had, there's going to come time down the road where you can eat those things, and
Mhm.
you can have cake, and you can have pizza and cookies and slider foods and all of these, things that are not good for you. But that's when the real work, I think, for me really sets in. It's all about your headspace. It's making the choice. I could have this right now, but I'm choosing not to. Or I can enjoy one or two bites and feel the craving or have the satisfaction, and not get to the point where you're overeating or overexerting and going overboard. It really does become a lifestyle. It's a life change.
Yep.
Oh my god, I absolutely love that. I can't believe like we're almost out of time, but we still have some time. Um, what is something that, so you're now 2 years out now, a little over 2 years out.
Yep.
Actually, almost wait, you had it in April, right?
Yep.
So you just had like your 2 year surgiversary?
I did. I did.
Congrats. Did you do anything to celebrate?
I worked.
I guess earning money is a good way to celebrate. I love that. So now that you're 2 years out, by this point, like we were just saying, there's a lot more foods you can probably tolerate. There's a lot of the original like side effects or restrictions. A lot of it have kind of mellowed out by now. Um, what do you think is the biggest challenge in this phase for you, if any?
The biggest challenge for me is to definitely not overeat, which, I
Okay.
mean, it's not hard, because obviously your stomach can only hold so much, but it's also choosing the right foods. Because I'm juggling like 3 different jobs right now, so kind of coming home and sitting down to a really good protein and
Yeah.
veggie meal doesn't happen all the time.
So it's more like finding things on the go for you, or like kind of
Yeah.
having. Okay, I got it. So for what would be like, what's one of your favorite like go-to meals when you're on the go? Like if you're somebody who's like Chelsey, who works 3 jobs and she's all over the place, what's something that's a quick go-to that gives you enough protein or like helps fill you up? Like, do you have any suggestions?
So honestly, the funny thing is, every morning I have what's called a Jimmy Dean's breakfast scramble. So it has eggs, cheese, and sausage in it. I chose the sausage one. They have a meat lovers one as well. It's literally not even 2 minutes in the microwave, and it's 24 grams of protein.
Really?
Yep.
It's like what in the frozen food section?
Nope. It's usually in my Walmart. It's by the bacon.
Really? So, but it's like a ready-made thing that you
Yep.
just. I'm gonna be writing this down.
And then the other thing I have usually for my lunch is a little container. It's literally about this big, of cottage cheese. It's Kemp's cottage cheese, and there's 18 grams of protein in that.
Okay, I'm not the biggest fan of cottage cheese.
A lot of people aren't.
So I will let you enjoy. Now, I will say this. At Starbucks, I don't know if you ever had, they have like those egg bites. And I do love like the egg bites. It's like a bacon and Gruyere egg bite or something like that. Well, somebody had sent me a recipe on kind of how to make it at home, and I haven't done it yet, but it did involve cottage cheese. And the only reason I contemplated trying it is because it's all mixed in with the egg and with the other ingredients and then baked. So I'm hoping there's not much of a cottage cheesy taste to it.
Well, it
But
shouldn't be with the eggs, you would think.
yeah, I think it's more just to kind of make it more fluffier, kind of like add more substance to it. I'm thinking.
Mhm.
I don't know. But have you now, since you've had the surgery, I'm just curious, have you ever come across people, whether online or in person, who kind of like made you feel like you took the easy way out or you cheated?
I have been made to feel that way a few times, yes.
By people who you're close to, or just like by like online forums and stuff?
A couple times by, some friends and family members that I was close to, and then a couple that was just whoever, I didn't really know them that well.
Yeah. And how do you respond to that when somebody like comes up to you and they're like, "Oh, you just cut your stomach, you just took the easy way out?"
It's, I don't know, I kinda like, "Well, how would you feel if your stomach was cut in half and you couldn't eat this? Or you couldn't eat that? Or you couldn't gulp down your water, you have to sip it." So I'd kind of point out exactly what I do in my day to day. They're like, "Oh wow, I didn't realize it was that much work." I was like, "Oh yeah, it's not just, cut, clean, simple, easy,
Yeah.
done."
Yeah, like I didn't just cut my stomach and then all of a sudden, boom, like the weight just like came off. And I tell people, this was probably one of the hardest things I've ever gone through in my life because it just doesn't affect you. Yes, your stomach is physically smaller, but there's a period where there's a mental struggle, there is an emotional struggle, your hormones get out of whack, you are literally looking back like, what have I done to myself, like why did I choose this? And there's so many that goes into it. And I wanted to take the opportunity because one, first of all, I'm just so grateful for Chelsey that she was like my very first guest today. And I kind of talked a little bit in the beginning. The whole purpose of hopefully this show and these episodes is to really bring to light one, the stigmas of obesity, how we view people who are overweight or obese. It's so common that we were viewed as lazy, filthy, gross, disgusting, overeaters, like what, but there's so much more to the story. Like just like with any addiction, it's not going to be something that's fixed overnight. And just because you're obese or you're overweight doesn't mean that you're not actively trying to better yourself. And for some of us, this surgery really does become either a last option, or for many an only option. And yes, are there people who might be doing it for the wrong reasons or might not be in the correct mental state to in order to have the long-term results? Yes, but the point is we really want to highlight people, and like we're real people, we have real stories, we had real struggles, and this was merely a tool to help us get to the other side. And just like Chelsey has said, this is not a cure all. It's not a fix all. You don't just cut your stomach and then everything's going to be all sunshine and rainbows moving forward. So, people who are watching this at home, if you've had the surgery or even if you're considering having the surgery, unfortunately, this is a topic that's going to come up very often. And even almost 8 years out, I still have people tell me today, "Oh, you took the easy way out," or "Oh, you cheated." So I wanted to give you guys an opportunity to maybe have a rebuttal. And I kind of came up with this really cool analogy. So if somebody tells me that you cheated, I ask them, "Well, do you go to the gym? Do you use the leg press machine or the leg extension machine? Is that cheating?" Because at the end of the day, yes, it's a machine that's there to help you. Now, you can sit on the leg press machine every day. Sitting on the leg press machine is not going to have your legs strong. It's not going to build you the muscle. You have to take that machine, that tool, and you need to use it every day. And you have to use it properly and make sure your form is correct and that everything is, copacetic. And then over time, you're going to slowly get results because you're utilizing your machine correctly in order to get to where you want to go. And the same thing can be applied to anybody who takes any kind of medication. If you're a diabetic and you take insulin, are you cheating? Should you have gone and found another way for your body to naturally produce insulin? For some people, you can't do that. The medication is a tool. Having the prescription and holding it in your hand is not going to cure the diabetes. But if you're taking the medication as prescribed and you're being consistent with it and you're using it as a tool to get to the results that you want, which is to lower your numbers or to, fix, certain ailments that you're having, the same thing is with Tylenol or anything else in life. People who take protein shakes, are you cheating? Why aren't you getting your protein in naturally? Why aren't you eating more chicken breast? If you have a protein container, are you going to all of a sudden build muscle mass overnight? No, you got to take your protein shakes and as a tool, and they're used to aid you down the road. So that might not work for everybody. Everyone might have a rebuttal or a response to it. But my biggest advice for people is the sad reality is people are going to tell you that you're cheating or you took the easy way out. Hopefully, these are some tools that you can maybe use to kind of help answer those questions, or you can just tell them to shut the smurf up. I almost put there, and tell them to go about your day. But if you feel that you want to explain it to somebody, I love that Chelsey says cutting your stomach is not simple. Drinking a sip of water is not taking the easy way out. Now, I was very similar to you that I was on liquids for a month straight too. I think I was 2 weeks of like simple liquids, like just the protein drinks, and then 2 weeks of full liquids, like milk products or maybe pudding or something like that. That's not easy. There is nothing about this surgery that is easy. But to those of you who take it seriously and put everything that you have into the program and the process and trust it, you're going to have results that you did not deem possible. You're going to have a smile as big as Chelsey's has been throughout this episode, reliving certain moments. And obviously, we are not here to tell you to run out and have the surgery tomorrow. Our goal is to say, hey, if this is an option for you, and if you choose to go down this path, here's some stories of people who've been through it, who are willing to help you along the way and offer support and advice. And so, yeah, like I seriously, Chelsey, I can't thank you enough. I went on a little tangent right now. I do apologize. We're still learning. It's the first show. Get over it. But is there anything that you would like to add or contribute or anything before we leave today?
Not that I can think of. Just, if you are thinking about pursuing the surgery, just definitely do your research. That I spent like 2.5 months of research before I was even going to schedule the surgery, and then I did a whole bunch of research the week before surgery.
I love that. And yeah, I tell people all the time, make sure you do your research. Don't just listen to the horror stories. Don't just listen to all the good stories. Don't just look at somebody's before and after picture and be like, oh yeah, I can do that. Talk to them about the journey. There's a lot of stories. There's a lot of unzipping between those two pictures that you're not taking into account. And talk to people. Watch this show. Tell people to watch this show. We're gonna have a lot of really good content. And so, yeah. And so, like I said, like Chelsey, just thank you so much for coming today. I was just so excited. I was nervous and Chelsey calmed me down and I loved it.
Thank you for having me. I was excited to be on the show.
And I hope that you're willing to come back again.
Absolutely.
Good answer. Um, So if you guys are watching, please share the story, share our page, share Unzipped with Sheri on Facebook or on YouTube, or I think I'm on TikTok now. I'm on Twitter. Like we're all over the freaking place. So make sure that you should subscribe and spread the word. If you would like to share your story with us, make sure you reach out to me. I'd love to have you on the show. If you have any questions for Chelsey after this interview, send them my way, or you can find Chelsey directly on Facebook. We can always put the link on there or whatever information you want to put. And then, yeah, if you have any suggestions on how this can go better in the future, if you have any special ideas on what you want to have, if you guys run out and get the Jimmy Dean sandwich or like the breakfast scramble, like let me know what you think about it until I've had a chance to go get it myself. And so, yeah, so that's basically our very first show. Thank you so much to Chelsey who's joining us. And I guess we will have to see you next week. Have a great week, you guys.
Bye.